In 3, 2, 1. All right, welcome everybody to episode 6 of Hello Haymarket. I'm Daniel Nyce, your host, and I am here today with two of my favorite people in the whole world, Dave and Denna Zimmerman. These two are the leaders of the Clifton expansion on our realtor group at the Casa Group here. And they are the first, and so far this year, the only team that has actually not just hit, but massively exceeded their target goal for business done in Northern Virginia. And it's just an absolute pleasure to have them on today. Dave, Denna, welcome.
Thank you,
Daniel.
Daniel.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Before we get started, I just wanted to extend you guys the opportunity to introduce yourself to the audience a little bit and say anything at all that you would like them to learn about you. And a little bit about your story, how you got here today.
Sure. Well, I think I met Rob Chavez, our CEO, back in 2012 actually. I was doing investor things, courthouse auction sales and that kind of thing. And so I ran into him at a Casamita group, which is now called Grid Investor, and started talking with him, and he one thing led to another, and I joined him on the real estate team, and I've been with him for the last 10 years.
Yeah. I remember when I first joined the team, I also found my way in through a friend of mine who knew of Grid, which at that time was also called Casa, right? And that's how I got referred into the group. So we kind of both found our way in similar ways then.
Mm-hmm. We should mention that Denna joined the team in 2015.
Yes, I joined later after Dave. He wanted me to join him for a while, and we were just waiting for the right time, kids to be grown, and a few other things like that had to happen to release Mom into the real estate world. And so I've been working with Casa for about 5 years now.
That's fantastic.
And she's such a natural at this too. She was doing a job where she was also great at it, but not making any money. And I said, "Hon, one deal, and you can make more than you'll make in a year." Right? So I convinced her to come on board with us, and we've actually had a lot of fun this year working together, and every year since then too.
Yeah. It's one of the things that Elize and I actually. We love to see others who are succeeding in some aspect of their life and see if there's anyone we could choose as a good model for ourselves. And we've often commented to each other how we would love to be as lucky as the two of you are. We feel like you have set a great example that we would love to live up to someday. So just thought I'd throw that in there edgewise.
We appreciate that. Thank you. It's interesting when you talk with folks about working with their spouse. You get polar answers. You never get anything in between. It's either like, "Oh, that would be so awesome," or "I could never do that."
Yeah, absolutely. I have even myself, I was conflicted about when Elize was talking about maybe joining as a realtor one day. I was like, I don't know about that. I get a lot of mixed results, but seeing the Magels do it successfully, see you guys do it successfully, we thought, okay, if we run into the rock sometime, we have some people we can ask for help.
Hardworking, God's grace.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
But so, as I was trying to allude to, smart sizing. What is it, and who is it for?
So there's a lot of terms out there now. There's downsizing. My father-in-law called it resizing because when he sold his huge house in Great Falls, he actually got a house that was probably that large in Leesburg then, so he called it resizing, and he laughed every time he said it. So the downsizing thing is a bit of a misnomer. So when Denna and I were talking about this and our experience in it, which goes back years and years in helping people do their downsizing or resizing, we said, well, let's call it smart sizing because let's do it the smart way.
Yes, that's right. Life is constantly changing. That's what life is. It's moving, changing, growing, and people's house needs change with their lives. They need more space, less space, different space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So who do you talk to about smart sizing? Is this something that you kind of suggest it to people when they approach you about selling a house, or like how does it come about?
Yeah, that's a good question. Everyone has their own unique situation, right? So the first thing we do with any of our prospective clients is sit down with them and talk about what their story is, what they want to do, right? And usually the first question is, okay, so you're thinking about moving, why? Why do you want to do that? Oh, well, our kids are out of the house. We don't need a big house any longer. This is a big property. We don't want to take care of, 5 acres or 10 acres any longer.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things, equal them wanting to make some type of a change. And so it's, that's kind of the first step in smart sizing, is for us to sit down with the folks that are selling their house and interview them and find out what their motivations are, where they want to go, all the things that are surrounding this, recent, thought to move, right?
Yeah.
It can be a big decision and a very personal and emotional one for people to move out of their family home. The home they maybe raised their kids in, maybe they've lived there for 25 years or more. So this type of client, I think, more so than any other, it takes a lot of connection and some understanding and gentleness. This is their home. This is their personal things that they've collected over their adult life. So you have to be very respectful of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed even in my own business, when I'm working with a buyer, you're usually working with someone who's at a peak moment in their life, because they're the ones ready to make a purchase and to start on an adventure.
Yes.
And when I work with a seller, oftentimes it can sometimes be a little bittersweet, because they're making this transition and they have to say goodbye to something that they've held on to as a sacred space for so long. Mm-hmm. So I can definitely see why a situation like this, where there is a transition being made, that it's important that they do it the smart way.
Yes.
Right?
And it's not necessarily a sad transition either. Sometimes it's an exciting transition for them. I mean, our experience, kind of began with this when we moved from the house that we had in the neighborhood over by Dulles Airport, Chantilly Highlands. We had 26 years there, and 26 years of stuff built up, and our kids were raised there, and they're now out off to college or doing whatever they're doing. And, and we're like, okay, so now what do we do? So, a couple of angles there. We could get the condo on the water, in Reston or someplace, or downtown or somewhere like that. And
I have too much stuff for
she
a
has a lot of
condo.
stuff. Yeah, so we could do something like that, a smaller environment. For us, we ended up buying 7 acres in Clifton. So we went the opposite direction, although our house is smaller than it was then, because we don't need as many bedrooms and all that. So it's interesting. It kind of goes back and forth or whatever. So
that does bring up a good point. So when someone's getting ready to sell their house, where do they go?
Yeah.
Well, it's individual. I mean, sometimes they're moving to warmer weather. Sometimes they are moving to be close to adult children and grandchildren. Sometimes they're moving away from something, an ex-spouse or something, a job. Sometimes they may want more of a retirement facility, where you can have independent living, and then if it becomes necessary, you can, as you age, if you need assisted living, you can do that. It just really depends on the individual. It's very personal.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a client in Clifton who, and usually it's a life event that forces this or makes this happen. Kids are graduating, your spouse passes away.
That's a sad one.
A particular client in Clifton, she, lived there. It was her dream house in Clifton on 5 acres. She had horses, she had it set up. Beautiful. Husband passed away, so there came a point where she couldn't take care of 5 acres by herself any longer. And so we helped her smart size, sold her house in Clifton. She lives, in a retirement community now that's independent living. Her horses are now in a stable nearby, so she can go to be with them every day. And so those are kind of the things that make this come about, right? And it could be almost anything. That's why that initial interview is so important.
Yeah.
Find out what people's motivations are.
Absolutely, because it sounds like you guys are able to sit down with these folks, find out what the problems are that they're facing, and you can kind of help guide them through what some potential solutions might be, right? Showing them some directions, maybe where they can go. And as you mentioned, people accumulate things, right? I know when my mother was ready to sell her house, she had accumulated quite a lot of things in that basement. What do people do with all that stuff?
Well, the first thing is a lot of times it paralyzes them, because that's the thing. They're in this house. They've got 30 years worth of stuff built up. They're just like, I have no idea what to do with this, because if their thought is they want to move to a 2-bedroom condo someplace on the water and not have a yard any longer, well, that's a lot of things that they no longer need. There's 3 bedrooms worth of stuff in the house they don't need any longer. There's the entire storage shed that they don't need any longer. There's all the yard.
Garage full of lawnmowers, it goes on and on. And we get really personally attached to our stuff. I don't know if it's an American problem or not, but we start to think we are our stuff. So helping people gently make that separation and decide what they really want to bring to their new life, so it feels like them, is important.
Yeah. So once they've decided kind of where they're going, that's kind of the impetus as to how much of your stuff you need to get rid of, right? If you're actually going to a bigger property, you can take it all with you if you want, right?
Yeah.
It's always a good opportunity to purge things that you don't need.
Right.
If you haven't touched something in a decade and a half, then there's probably a pretty good, chance that you won't need it. You probably let it go, yeah. And we also bring in a lot of partners that we have too. There was a client that we had that was moving out of a 3-bedroom, beautiful condo overlooking the Potomac River, and her and her husband, who deceased now, were with the State Department, and they were widely traveled. So the house was full of furniture from all over the world.
Beautiful things. And she was an accomplished artist, and she had beautiful portraits and landscapes and things that she had done over the years, just stacks of them.
Yeah. So we brought in one of our auction companies to do an online auction of her things, because she was moving to, a bedroom in a condo someplace down in Florida, right? So it didn't require a lot of these things that she had to get, move on.
Yeah.
And so this partner helped her do the online auction. Pretty great too, because they show up one day to take pictures. They auction it for about 3 weeks, and then the next time you see anyone is when they're coming to get the things that they bought, and then they're out of there, and they hand you a check for $5,000 or $7,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the most difficult thing for folks, is the physical moving of their stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Even after they've made the decision, most people are unable to then pick it up, put it in a truck, and drive it somewhere for somebody else to sell it.
Yeah.
That requires either hiring movers, or
Get a pod
or
something.
being Hercules, which most people are not. So this is one way to sell things that kind of eliminates that step of moving your stuff another time.
Kind of sounds like 2 birds, 1 stone, right? Because on the one hand, they need to move it, but on the other hand, they no longer have to pay to have it moved, right? Someone's paying them to take it away, right? I feel like one of the things that comes to mind is the phrase "who, not how." Oftentimes in life, we find ourselves in situations where there's a new challenge and we're paralyzed, not moving forward because of that obstacle or that challenge. And what I've learned, if nothing else, in real estate is that it's usually a question of who can help me do this rather than how can I do this. Because it's going to get done faster, better, if you just find someone who makes this their calling, that they do it. And so that's what comes to mind for me when I listen to you talk about this story of people who have these problems. They're in a transition. There is something that they want to go move forward and move into their next section of their life, but because of these obstacles, maybe they're not taking action.
Right.
And they just don't realize all they need is who, right? Who is going to help guide me through this? Because people have succeeded. There's other people who have the model. They can show you how to do it. You just need to get in a room with them.
Right, because people can get stuck. They can just sit there and look at everything in their house and go, "There's no way. How are we ever going to do this?" And they just, they just get stuck. So we
Yeah.
try to, present the big picture and the ideas and the steps to kind of relieve all that stress from them.
Yeah, I can imagine you guys sitting in a room with a client and just watching the stress kind of like relief just washing over them as they've laid out the issues that they're trying to deal with. And you're just like, okay, well, check, we can fix this one this way, this one this way. Here's some
Right.
options on this one, right? Is that something that you've seen happen?
Yeah, because they're overwhelmed, and especially if they're widowed or or a widower, they just feel overwhelmed with all these things, and some of and how they need help.
Yeah.
We're human beings. We all need help. They need help.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if they're at all thoughtful about it, they're thinking in their mind, they're thinking, oh, I have to do this and I have to do that and I have to do that. It's a awesome relief for them, for somebody to come in that can actually offer them all those services, all those partnerships, to be able to do this and take that load off of them. Because highly motivated people are, they're used to doing things themselves, right? So to be able to say, you know what, we'll take care of that,
Yeah.
and then they're just like, really, you can do that? Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So then the last question I would have for you guys that comes to mind here is, what about the house? What do we do with that?
Well, I mean, some folks want to keep it and rent it, depending on their financial situation, but most people want to sell it.
Yeah. Yeah, and our expertise really comes from those days when I did the foreclosure auctions, and the early clients that I started working with. The thing that attracted me to real estate was I love doing the fix up. I love taking something that's an ugly duckling and making a swan. So my expertise is how to use the smart money to fix up your house, right? And some folks will want to do that, and some of them won't, right? So there's kind of 4 areas that you can do with a house. You could say, and we've done this year, sell it just like it is. We actually sold a house in Clifton this year where I met with the 2 clients, and they were interviewing agents. The other agents were like, here's what you got to do to fix this house up, and I love doing that. So, I mean, that was my bent, was like, fix this place up, and you could sell it for, a lot more. The two sisters of the 4 sisters that I was meeting with, they were just like, we don't want to do a thing with this thing. And I said, we can sell it just like it is. You don't have to do a thing. You don't have to touch a thing. We'll sell it with all the stuff in it if you want us to. And they were just like so relieved, right, that we were able to offer that. So that's kind of the, we'll sell it to an investor, which is what we did, right, in that case. We put it on the open market so that we could get them the most money, so we didn't, just offer it to investors. We offered it to the open market. And you have a progression. You have, the investor that'll buy it and flip it. You have the person that wants to buy it and move in and fix it up themselves. The handyman person. You have the normal buyer that if you do some renovations, they'll come by it and they'll love it. You change the carpet, you do some floors, you paint the thing, whatever. Maybe do some kitchens and bathrooms, or you can do the wholesale total upgrade, which we've done with clients as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And they'll, because some clients get into that. They're like, oh yeah, let's do that. So you totally upgrade the house. And of course you get top money for that. You're going to get the least amount of money from an investor, and it progressively gets more until you get top dollar on the money.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
So basically, once again, it's really about what is the client's temperament, what works for them, what works for their pocketbook and their time frame. And you get a little bit of everything. You get folks, let's just do a little fixing, let's just paint and redo the powder room. Okay. Or we try to help them make decisions as if you're not going to do a complete overhaul on the house, especially if you've lived there for like 25, 30 years. Let's do the things that will bring the most money and will attract the most buyers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the smart money. And so we can go in there if somebody's like, oh, we need to redo this patio. Sometimes I'll go in the house and it's like, no, you don't. Just power wash it. We're good. It'll sell just like that. Don't waste your money. Don't throw money at that, because that's not going to bring you back money when you sell it. Instead, take that money and put it into painting or replacing carpet or doing something else that is immediate gratification for buyers.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no rules. I mean, we're not there to force anybody to do anything. It's what works for them, and it's our job just to tell them what the different return is going to be on the different choices.
Yeah.
It's far less about us than it is about them. It's always about them.
For sure. One of the things that I liked that I was listening to when you were talking was you were kind of breaking it down into, you have option A, B, C, D, right? Kind of laying it out for you. And for someone who's overwhelmed, maybe they did lose a loved one, having all the infinite options kind of broken down into these really concrete choices. It's like, okay, well, we have A and we have B, and here's the options, and here's what you could expect the pros and cons of each one is going to be. Having someone to kind of help guide you through that, I can imagine, can be such a benefit, such a help. Yes. Because it is true, you see people out there who maybe try to for sale by owner, they've never done this before, and on top of that, they're already stressed from these other life changes that are motivating this to begin with. And it's like you're at your most vulnerable time and you're trying to tackle a project that you've got no experience to know how to handle, and it just doesn't make any sense to really do that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So having someone who does this every day, and by the way, you two, one of the things that I love about you as a team is that you show your level of care, right? Your bedside manner, just in everything you do, just the way you move, the way you talk. When I'm around you at the parties we have, I can, yes, because Kaza does have our get-togethers.
Yes, we do.
And
it's because we brought you a present when you bought your new house.
Oh, thank you, thank you for that. But that matters. That matters to people. It's always a belly-to-belly business. Being able to take someone and have them entrust you with such an important part of their lives, right? Yes. It's an important moment when someone buys a house, sells a house, when they move. And I just really see that come through with spades with you guys.
Well, thanks. Appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it's about them. It's a trusted guide for them. Because we're, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we want to do. What matters is what they want to do. You know, we've had clients across the spectrum. You know, some clients are, will represent or will offer these 4 options to them, and they're just like, can you just write us a check? You know, we've already got our place in Arizona bought. We just want out of here. It's like, Of course, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're just the real estate Sherpa.
That's right.
I love it.
They're just here to carry your stuff.
So let's say one of our audience members out there who's listening to this is preparing for a transition or has a question. How would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, good question. So you can email us at Denna, Denna, at thekazagroup.com.
Mm-hmm.
Or Dave, Dave, at thekazagroup.com.
That's Kaza with a Z, not with an S.
I love it.
Yeah, Kaza actually stands for hunt. It's translated hunt. So hunt houses. Kaza Casa.
He's a house hunter. Absolutely.
There we go.
All right. Well, Dave, Denna, thank you so much for joining us today. I had a blast. I think our audience is going to love it. And I really appreciate you making time.
All right.
Well, thank you, Daniel.
Dave.
We appreciate it.
All right.